Our family lived in two places during my time of existence. From the time I was born in Marsenia Hospital in Harlem. And we left the apartment across the street from the drugstore when I was about 2. My sister was already 6 or 7, and she was pushed around on the way to school, and her books would be stolen and her pens, and the next day they would be replaced and stolen again on her way to or from school. So my mom and dad decided, probably mostly my mom, she made most of those types of decisions. We have to be in a safe place for the kids. So they found an apartment, modest apartment, $40 a month rent, 1640 Topping Avenue in a nice neighborhood next to a park in the Bronx. It was a modest apartment on the first floor in a 6-story New York City old-time 1920s building. Somewhat interesting, my sister and her piano were right against the window, and I would join my sister and we would practice sonatas to the delight of the neighbors who would come and actually walk by and then stay out on the sidewalk because it was like a concert for them. On one occasion, I was playing with my sister and my colleague and counterpart at the High School of Music and Art, a fellow by the name of Herbert Feldman. We were competitors on the violin. And on this occasion, we had organized to play the Bach double concerto. That's 2 violins and a piano arrangement of the orchestra part. So one day we were playing that thing, happily working away, very peacefully, and there came a knock on the door, a loud knock. And my mom, probably from the kitchen, came to the door. And who was there but a big, burly cop, New York cop. "What's going on here? We got a complaint about noise. Let me have a look here." So my mom said, "Come right in. Would you like some tea or coffee?" Being the woman she was, she didn't have any fear of him, but didn't know why he was there and wanted to be nice to him. And the idea was that someone had complained about the noise. We thought it was music. The neighbor thought it was noise. And so the cop came all the way into where we were rehearsing near the piano. And I gave a wink to my sister. And the wink was, and I showed my sister on the parts where we should start. So we started the slow movement, which is a beautiful thing that goes like this. Dee-da-da-dee, da-da. piano dynamic. Beautiful, suave, nice, and we played it well. And the cop amazingly turned to us and says, "That's beautiful. I love that. You guys are great. How can anybody possibly complain about that? I'm going to fix this all up. I'm going right upstairs to that lady who complained about you guys. You're great. Keep up the good work." So, if you want to think about memories of a time, an early time in life, and what the Bronx might have been like, that could give you some insight how we flummoxed the system that day very well. My parents had a full life. My dad totally consumed with his business, the drugstore. And my mom at home as a Bronx housewife, trying to take care of homely matters. My dad at one point said that music is a wonderful thing, but it's not a profession. It's just wonderful in its own right. So he loved music, and he used to sometimes play Russian folk tunes for me, pluck them on the violin, and sing to me. His dream for me was to take over the drugstore, definitely not to go into music as a profession. He thought that was no good, but the drugstore might be, he thought, for me. The ethnicity of my neighborhood in the Bronx was we had one Gentile family, and everybody knew who the Dowlings were. Ray Dowling was a friend of mine. Every other kid was Jewish, and that was it. We controlled the Bronx. I remember all the names of all my friends. We had a gang. We played ball together in the street. We had stickball, strikeouts, and we would play in the streets. So when the cars came, we would run to the curb, let the cars go, and then go back on our field that we had taken over, being a 10-year-old kid with nothing to do. Well, my sister Abby was ensconced in our apartment in the Bronx, and my mom was in the store a great deal. So Abby had responsibility to see that I didn't get beaten up too much by the gangs that were beginning at those days. I think Abby resented having to take care of me to some extent, but she did a good job keeping me alive in a difficult neighborhood. And I did everything I could to get out from under that watchful eye and get into the most risky things possible to assert my burgeoning personality. My father spent his entire time in the drugstore making prescriptions and helping behind the soda fountain. He was never at home in the Bronx except to sleep. The first instrument that I played was the piano. My piano career lasted only a couple of years, from about age 4 to age 6. But I wasn't destined to be a full-fledged, long-term pianist. I liked playing it. I think I probably quit after 2 years or so. I think I was pretty much a willful kid. I didn't have much in mind at that age. As far as how it happened that I picked up the violin, my dad loved the violin. He used to pluck tunes on a broken-down violin that was lying around the house. And so I think I inherited a little bit of the general affection for the instrument from my dad. I had a teacher when I was about 13, 14, and 15 who used to come to the house. My mom would go to the window and do a particular thing like a yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo. The whole neighborhood knew it. That was the Iglitzin call, because I was way out there in the ball field, and my teacher was at the house door, the apartment door, waiting for me, while the sound got out to the ball field, and I was ushered in the house to go in the bathroom, wash my hands, take a moment, dry off, and have my lesson. guy named Mr. Glasser. Nice fellow. The fun part is that many, many years later, I was in New York with the quartet, playing some important concerts at Carnegie or Town Hall, some of the places that we played. And I happened to pick up in the hotel the Musicians Union magazine. And I noticed an advertisement in the magazine for a new thing that was on the market, fiberglass bows. Before this, we used a certain kind of bow only. A fine bow was made of a wood called Pernambuco, a rare wood from South America, or lesser woods. But nobody ever heard of fiberglass to supplant the qualities of a wooden bow from hundreds of years of tradition. I saw that, and then I looked at the ad and it said, Glasser Bow Manufacturing Company. I thought, Glasser? My teacher was named Glasser. Could he have retired from teaching and started a fiberglass bow business? So I phoned that number, and a rough voice answered, Glasser Manufacturing. And I said, hello. Is there a Mr. Glasser there? Yeah, that's my dad. And I said, could he be someone who taught the violin in the Bronx a long time ago? He said, yeah, that's my dad you're talking about. What is it? I said, is he around still? And he said, I'll get him. So a very mellifluous sound comes on after that. Hello? And I said, hello? He said, yes, who is this? I said, this is Alan Iglitzin. A silence for a second. He said, Iglitzin? Iglitzin? And I quote now, big fellow, never would practice. End of story. So from a vantage point of, I don't know how many years, I was in the quartet already, so I was an adult. The one thing he remembered, I would never practice. So that's my legacy. And he asked me how I ever learned to play the violin. I can't answer it, but Mr. Glasser was part of it. And I treasure that moment, both my pride in not having to practice and still making a decent career.